Welcome back to the Wise Mindset Guy podcast, where we dig into the real stuff that makes life meaningful. I'm your host, Nat Palestino, and today we're diving into a topic that resonates with so many of us: the pursuit of perfection versus the joy of simply living. So let's get right into it. Now, perfection. It's a word we hear all the time, isn't it? From social media posts to, professional standards, we're bombarded with images and messages suggesting that only perfection is acceptable. But what if I told you that chasing perfection might be getting in the way of truly enjoying life? Today we're going to really explore why focusing on being perfect is less important than actually living a fulfilling, authentic life. Let's talk about the idea of perfection. It's often seen as the elusive ideal, something that's supposed to be flawless and without any faults. But here's the catch. Perfection is subjective. What one person sees as perfect might seem imperfect to someone else. And guess what? Perfection is unattainable. It's like trying to catch a rainbow. The closer you get, the further it seems to move away from you. Instead of chasing after perfection, what if we shifted our focus to living fully? Living a full life means embracing who you are, imperfections and all. It's about celebrating your unique qualities and experiences rather than comparing yourself to an ideal that doesn't exist. Consider this. Every person has their own quirks, strengths, and weaknesses. It's these very things that make us who we are. When we're fixated on being perfect, we might miss out on the beauty of our own journey. Think about it. Some of the most interesting and inspiring people are those who've embraced their imperfections and used them as a source of strength. Let's take a moment to think about a few examples. Have you heard of the Japanese art of, if I'm saying this correctly, kintsugi? It's the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold or silver lacquer, right? Instead of hiding the cracks, kintsugi highlights them, turning imperfections into a beautiful feature. This is a powerful metaphor for our lives. Instead of hiding our flaws or trying to cover them up, we can really embrace them and let them become a part of our story. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but what about striving for improvement? Well, that's a fair point. It's absolutely okay to set goals and strive to better yourself. The key is to approach these goals with a mindset that values progress over perfection. Improvement doesn't mean achieving an ideal standard. It means growing and learning over time. Imagine you're learning a new skill, like playing an instrument or cooking a new recipe. At first, you might make mistakes and not get it perfect. But if you focus on the joy of the learning process and the satisfaction of the progress, you'll find that the experience becomes more rewarding. The same goes for life. When we focus on the journey and our growth, the pressure to be perfect can melt away, leaving space for genuine satisfaction and happiness. It's also worth noting that our desire for perfection often stems from fear of judgment, failure, or not measuring up. But here's the truth. Everyone faces setbacks and makes mistakes. I have, you have, everyone does. It's part of being human. By accepting that imperfection is a natural part of life, we can free ourselves from the unrealistic expectations we place on ourselves. Let's take a practical approach to this idea. Try to practice self-compassion. When you make a mistake or fall short of a goal, instead of beating yourself up, speak to yourself as you would to a friend. Acknowledge that it's okay to be imperfect and that you're doing your best. This shift in mindset can make a huge difference in how you experience life. Another way to embrace living fully is by focusing on the present moment. I know I've talked about this before, but it's really, really key and important. We often get caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. But life is happening right now. By being present and appreciating the moment, you can find joy in the simple things and connect more deeply with yourself and others. So as we wrap up today's episode, remember this: perfection is not the goal. Instead, strive to live fully and authentically. Embrace your imperfections. Focus on your journey and savor the present moment. Life is too short to be spent chasing an impossible ideal. It's about experiencing the highs and lows, learning and growing, and finding happiness in the imperfect, beautiful process of living. Thanks for joining me today on the Wise Mindset Guy podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing, sharing it with a friend, or leaving a review. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and embracing imperfection and living fully. Until next time, live authentically and appreciate the journey. Take care and see you in the next episode.